Would it surprise you to learn that people tend to believe a lot of stuff that isn't true? The modern world is complicated and fast-moving. Everyone has places to be, work to do, and bills to pay. Most folks just don't have the time to Google random facts and double-check their accuracy. So get ready to have your world rocked, because here comes some false facts that you just might believe. Everyone loves ninjas. Well, it's an interesting story, so you can see where the Ninja Association comes from. The myth is that hungry pigeons chow down on dry rice, which is traditionally thrown at weddings. Some believe this myth was started by grumpy church practitioners after one too many people slipped on rice at weddings. In 1985, she introduced a bill that would fine citizens $50 for throwing rice at weddings. So next time you're at a wedding, feel free to fling that rice right into the bride's eyes. For centuries now, old Greco-Roman statues have stood as beautiful glimpses into the past. An ancient time when master craftsmen turned marble slabs into delicate, incredible works of art that were solemnly appreciated by a sophisticated audience. Just kidding, they were actually ugly as sin. Believe it or not, modern examinations of many of these classical statues have revealed a faint but unmistakable residue of dried paint. This means it's highly likely that once the sculptors were done chiseling a statue, it was handed off to a painter to be decorated. As Sarah Bond of the University of Iowa puts it, the statue was seen as a canvas, not a finished product. So what did the finished product look like? Well, the residue indicated the colors were bright, garish, and gaudy, meaning these beautiful statues essentially used to look like clowns. In many old cartoons, Bugs would loudly munch down on a carrot in the middle of his antics, which eventually led the popular consciousness to internalize that bunnies love carrots. I'm sorry to blow your mind, but there is no link between bone health and milk intake. Don't know everything. Carrots don't give you night vision, and while they're tasty, eating an apple a day won't keep the doctor away, unless you throw it at them. The origins of this belief can be traced back to schools receiving nutritional materials that boasted the milk bone myth, and these materials were funded by the National Dairy Council. I can't tolerate any more lactose lies. 100% bunk. What would you do if you could fully harness 100% of your brain's power? Make it big on the stock market? Find a cure for cancer? Me? I'd go back to my childhood copy of Pokemon Silver and finally beat that sliding tile puzzle. Did you know that Frankenstein refers not to the monster, but the name of the monster's creator? Since Mary Shelley's seminal work of early science fiction was released in 1818, the novel has been adapted and reinterpreted in dozens of different mediums, including movies, stage plays, and even video games. Ask just about anyone to picture Frankenstein's monster and they'll likely imagine a hulking, mumbling 8-foot-tall brute with bolts in his neck. Well, the monster exploded into the popular consciousness after the 1931 film, which set the standard for depictions of the monster. Maybe it's time for a Twilight-style sexy Frankenstein revival. I think Dark Frank is a good name. Clowning on history. Surely if you could see anything from space it'd be that, right? Well, not exactly. The first problem is where you count outer space as actually beginning. Most scientists define space as beginning at something called the Kármán line. This is the point at which most satellites comfortably orbit the Earth. The Kármán line is exactly 100 kilometers, or 62 miles above sea level. And if you look at this photo taken from the International Space Station on a 180mm lens to mimic the view from the Kármán line, well, the Great Wall isn't exactly visible. But if it makes you feel better, most space stations orbit the Earth tens of miles beyond the Kármán line anyway, meaning there's no way an astronaut would ever look down on Earth from space and admire the Great Wall. Swallowing falsehoods. Never fear though, this myth is still baloney. For starters, for it to be true, the world would need to have a fairly even distribution of spiders, which just isn't the case. Iceland has only 91 species of spider, whereas Australia has over 10,000. This mighty wall was built some 2,600 years ago to repel a Mongolian invasion into China, and all its sections span an absolutely mind-boggling 13,170 miles. And if you look at this photo taken from the International Space Station on a 180mm lens to mimic the view from the Kármán line, well, the Great Wall isn't exactly visible. After all, it's common knowledge that humans swallow between 4 and 8 spiders a year in their sleep, or is it just 20 in their lifetime? Working with 8 annually, that would mean the roughly 8 billion people on Earth swallow 64 billion spiders a year. Iceland has only 91 species of spider, whereas Australia has over 10,000. Though small, the speed of the penny hurtling towards the ground would turn it into a torpedo, with the force of gravity making it accelerate all the way down until it reaches speeds that could crack open your melon. Yeah.